What's going on, you guys? So today we're going to change the lift bolts on a GTS. I have my GTS here, and to my knowledge the lift bolts have never been changed because it's a completely original car, and I'm pretty sure the previous owner had no idea about changing them, as most Celica owners, they actually have no idea. And so I'm sure this has actually been covered so many times before, but I just wanted to have it on my channel just in case people that follow me and don't follow other people, or vice versa, if they don't know about it. I just want to inform you guys on changing your lift bolts. So your lift bolts are actually located right under this valve cover. There is one right here and one right there, directly underneath of this. So to get to it, we have to take off the valve cover, the spark plug coils, and the other various plastics. So in order to be able to do the job, some of the tools that you'll need is a ratchet, possibly a screwdriver, needle nose pliers, extensions, various extensions, a universal joint, 10mm socket, 5mm hex socket, and of course your two brand new lift bolts. So they're actually called flange bolts from Toyota. These are your part numbers right there. So I just wanted to provide that right there, and this is what they look like. Now, a couple things to note: the 2000 to 2002 version are like smaller, where they're actually like they have a indent right there, or they don't have the indent right here. It's just a shorter, stubby version of this. These are actually the new updated version with the kind of like the angled point that go up to the tip, and they actually reinforced this area right here, if you can see. And the reason for that is on early models 2000 to 2002, these actually ended up breaking, and most of them broke while they're inside the engine, and if the shaft rotated, it's quite a job just to get that out. So in 2003 they came out with these new updated versions. So if you have a 2003 to 2005, more than likely your lift bolts are not broken, depending on how hard the car was driven and other uses of this bolt. But more than likely your bolts are intact, so hopefully that's the case, and you just want to change them. So let me actually grab another one. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's an example of a used lift bolt. Of course, this is the updated version. I did get this from my Lotus that has a 2ZZ as well. So if you can see the wear marks on it. Actually, no, this was not from my Lotus. This was from a previous Celica I had, because my Lotus one wasn't this orange color. This orange color is basically from the oil that's constantly over it. But I remember mine was actually more of a whitish color. So I know this is from that black Celica that I was talking about in my previous video. Anyways, so if you can take a look at this, you can see how it's worn down right in the middle. That's where they reinforced it, and they found out that's where it breaks, so they kind of made it taper down and increase the strength on that side to give it a little bit more longevity. So this is a used bolt that actually I'm pretty sure this came from the exhaust side, and then my intake side was broken, but this is the wear that the exhaust took. So I just want to show a comparison of those two together. So let's get on with it, and let's take this valve cover off. Alright, so let's begin. First off, I want to apologize for kind of the shaky video. My camera stabilizer is actually being charged, so I actually have to hold my phone, and I don't have a tripod to hold my phone without it. But a impact gun is super helpful for all the bolts, so I certainly recommend using one just for time. So let's begin. There are 4 hex bolts right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So after you get those off, you can just lift your plastic out of the way. Alright, so now we have to take off the 4 ignition coils. Get your 10mm and take off the bolts. Alright, so now you want to disconnect your electrical connector. So there's this tab right here. You press this down and then you pull it out. Of course, it's much simpler through camera magic. Alright, so next you want to take your electrical connectors off of the coils. So you want to press this tab in and then pull it out, and then it comes free. Now you want to take your coils out, and when you lay them down, just put them down in order. That way you don't mix them up. Not that it really matters if they all work properly, but it's always nice to be consistent with all your work. There's 2. 3 and 4. So you got your 4 coils right there. Now the next step is to take these 2 10mm bolts off. So we can just do that. Alright. Get this one there. Get that nut off. You actually may want to, just for safety, leave your coils in and take these 2 nuts off first, just to prevent them from maybe falling into that spark plug hole. Of course, nothing will happen because your spark plugs are in there and it's not going to go in the engine, but it's just more annoying to have to fish it out. So take the rest of it out. Of course, this is just a nut. And now you go on to the back. Alright, so now you go to the back, and if you notice there is this white clip over here. You press down on that clip. Sorry for the camera angle, but you press down on the clip and then you pull it out without breaking it. So then now this part is free. So you can kind of bring this up a little bit. You have some more room to play with. Now you come over back on this side. Kind of take this off of this, and then you'll notice that you have a 10mm. Alright, so you kind of rotate your oil cap so that way you have room, or just take it off for that matter. So that way you can kind of have access to this. So you take that off. And then now you can actually put your oil cap back on for now. And then this is kind of free. Alright, so once you've taken that bolt off, you actually have enough room to be able to squeeze this valve cover, slide it out from underneath it. So you don't really need to go ahead and take so many more stuff off just to get that harness out of the way. You can actually just fit the valve cover right underneath it. So next step, you want to take your pliers and remove these 2 hoses. Alright, so once you kind of get these clips off of this metal portion right here, if this is stuck and it's not budging, you can use a flathead screwdriver, just kind of like pry it, and then once it's kind of loose, then you can go ahead and pull it. So you can pull both of them out, and then that uncovers 2 more bolts and right over here. So now you can take these 2 bolts off. Right there. There's one. And then there is two right there. And of course this one has a washer. And this one has a washer as well. So now we're at the point of getting to the valve cover, and anytime I change like a different level of platform, I like to keep all the hardware together. And when I just place them like in, for example, just move this over here, like I'll just place them kind of in the location that I took them off. That way you know exactly how many that you took off and that you put the right bolts in the right spot when you put it back together. So then that reveals this portion right here. You can tell that this has something that grabs or like holds it in place. So you gotta try to remember these orientations and stuff like that. So after that, we will move on to this side. Okay, so now we're going to take the valve cover itself off. It doesn't really matter the direction that you remove the bolts, but when you do put it back, that's actually what is important. So you can just start off right here. 1, 2, 3. So you want to take those 3 and place them right over here at the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, and then you can remove these right here for the breather tube. There's those. Alright, so you have the breather tube. By the way, this thing right here is an air injection system for the car. Just wiggle it a little bit, kind of pull it back, and you can see it separates, and that's perfectly good. And then you put your bolt right there, so you know that it came from your breather tube. Now you go on to this side, and there is one bolt right here that holds that clip. You want to pull this off of that plastic piece of the clip, and you can remove that right there. Right. You can just take the whole thing and then put it right over here. Now you go on to the back. Alright, so for the back 3, you want to use your 10 mil, a universal joint, and extension. And the bolt is right over here, which I took it out. And then the second one is right over here. And of course this is difficult to do with the camera, holding it with one hand. Okay, so now after you took those 3 in the back, you come around on this side and you notice one more right where you took off the previous ones by that clip. So there's one right there. So that should be the last one. You can take this off and set it back to where you got that one off. Okay, so at this point you have removed all the bolts, and now you can just kind of wiggle it, and then it should pop off like that. So just be careful, just take it out gently, and it will come out. So you want to pull this breather tube off of these metal things right here. There you go. Now move that off, and then you just slide it off like that. Be careful not to damage your valve cover gasket, and you more than likely should change your valve cover gasket after you've changed it. So here we have the engine right here. It's actually relatively clean, so you want to move these over here so you don't get dust and debris on them. And of course, you kind of want to wipe it down with something that's not dusty. And so your lift bolts, this is your intake right here, and that's your exhaust right there. So those are the two that you need to remove. By the way, since you're here and you're looking at all the components, you want to kind of take a look at everything. Make sure that there's no metal shavings or anything of that sort. I know this does need an oil change. Remember, I just purchased this car, so it has not received an oil change yet. And you probably want to clean this area up prior to putting your cover back on. But I just wanted to share something really important. Now on the Lotus, these cars are plagued with cam failures, and so if you look at these lobes, like this very top part, you will see some wear. So that's normal wear. That's pretty normal. There's a slight wipeage, but it's not like it's been damaged. And if you run your fingers on it, it should feel super smooth, and this one does. So you can tell that they're actually in really good shape. And what happens is on the Lotus, we haven't actually seen them too many on the Celicas, but on the Lotus, I do remember when we worked on them at the shop that a lot of these have wiped, and you can actually, your nail will catch on the edge of these, and so that actually causes a lot of issues, and most of the issues are actually not detectable. You know, through standard testing, you actually have to remove the valve cover to inspect it. Some of the issues that you will see is a random misfire, so you'll get a lot of misfire codes, and you know, if oftentimes people get a misfire code and they say they've changed everything, injector, spark plug, coil, just like everything, and then one of the things they never checked was the camshaft, and oftentimes the camshaft was wiped, so it needed a new intake cam. On the exhaust, you don't usually see anything. Exhausts are always pretty good. It's just the intake cam gets worn down more. So that's just something for you guys to take note of. Now I'll actually show you guys a wiped cam because I still have one. Okay, so this is actually a camshaft that we have taken out, and if you can take a look over here, this is a wiped cam. So this edge right here, there's a lip that you can feel. It's more prominent on the first cylinders usually, so take a look at this one right here. And if you run your fingers on it, you can kind of tell that it's been wiped. So this is a cam that has been changed. So that's just something for you to take notice of when changing these bolts. Alright, so now it's time to take the lift bolts off. If you remember, I was using the impact wrench earlier. I use an impact wrench on the bolts outside of the engine. When you're working on inside the engine, you always want to use a ratchet and finish off with a torque wrench after you're tightening them up. This prevents you from damaging the threads and other components in the engine. So you also, one other thing is, if you notice, if you pay close attention when you're using an impact gun, you'll notice a lot of little metal flakes that fly off the threads and stuff, and that's something you definitely don't want inside your engine. So stick to using a ratchet when you're working inside the engine. So let's see if these lift bolts are intact or if they're broken. This car has 112,000 miles, and I'm pretty sure they've never been changed. So here we go. Alright, so it broke loose. That's a good sign. It didn't strip. Alright, so moment of truth. Dun 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 dun. Alright, so it is not broken, but it is worn down. So take a look at that. So this bolt has been worn down quite a bit. Let me see if I can get a better image of it. So you can see where it's been worn down right there. So this is exactly why they changed these bolts to the new versions. And if you put them together, this is the exhaust on the old Celica, and this is the intake. So you can see how much more where the intake receives. So let's take the exhaust off and compare the two. Alright, so now time for the exhaust bolt. I'm going to take this off. Okay, so that's broken off. Watch, just my luck, it's going to be the exhaust one that's broken. I'm just kidding. Exhaust ones almost never break. So there it is. And you can notice right away that it's not as worn as the intake side. So let's take a look at them together. So that's the intake right here. Let me zoom in for you guys. That's the intake side right there. And then this is the exhaust side right here. So definitely the intake side has been worn out way more. So now we're going to replace it with this brand new one. Alright, so now putting the new intake one back on, always start off by hand. And the torque for this is 5.5 foot-pounds. And you always want to use a torque wrench to tighten that up. So, but if you know how tight to do it, you can go ahead and use a ratchet. Alright, that's good enough right there. Now we'll do the exhaust side. Check this again. Perfect. Alright, so there you go. Now we need to put the stuff back on. And before you do that, you want to clean the edges over here. And of course, carefully inspect your cams to make sure that no debris has fallen onto any of the components. You want to check all the edges to make sure there's no napkins or anything else like dust and debris. You want to clean it as best as you can if you see those objects. So let's clean it up and put the valve cover back on. Okay, so now you got your valve cover on. You want to make sure that both the oil pipe and all the other stuff are lined up underneath. Kind of give it a good wiggle just to get everything seated properly. You want to put your bolts in. So you have these 3 in the front, 1 on the side, 3 in the back, 1 right here, and then another one down there. So you want to tighten them in like a star pattern. Like, so what I do is inside and then that outside, and then basically you're crisscrossing just like how you would tighten up a wheel. And the torque for each of those bolts is 7 pounds. So just tighten them up in a crisscross pattern, and then at the end you can tighten up the breather tube right there. Okay, so now that you've put the valve cover on, you've tightened up your bolts, you want to connect your miscellaneous parts, such as that clip right there that holds the electrical connector to the air injection line if you have it, as well as that clip we took off earlier. And then you want to tighten down your 2 10mm nuts over here, and then put your spark plug, ignition coils, and connect the connectors, and then just tighten down your ignition coils. Sorry, my battery just died. So you just want to tighten on your ignition coils, and then make sure you torque them down as well. So once that's done, you just want to put your cover back on, and don't forget to connect your hoses back on. So connect them back up, and then use your needle nose pliers or whatever else you have to put them back like this. So okay, again, difficult to do with one hand, but basically you want to get it right up to that edge so you know it's on that metal piece right there. Oops, sorry about the camera angle right there. So you want to make sure those are connected. Double check all your wiring, make sure everything is connected, that there's everything's sitting flush. Next, you want to put your engine cover back on, and of course this is your very simple process. Just put it back on and secure it with your 4 5mm hex bolts, and then tighten them back up. Okay, so you just want to tighten up your cover right there. Alright, so there you go, you're all done. Now you want to start the car and just let it idle, warm up, and while it's warming up you want to inspect the area for any oil leaks. If there are no oil leaks, then that's great. Let the car warm up completely. Typically I actually want to see the temperature go to the operating level, and once it's at the operating level I want to drive it for another 5-10 minutes or so, just to let the oil warm up. So if you remember when I was referring to the cam wiping, you know, one of those things that cause excessive cam wear is cold engine oil, which is at operating temperature. So when you see your gauges at operating temperature, that's referring to your coolant. It's not referring to your oil. Oil actually takes a lot longer for it to heat up. So once a rule of thumb is after your operating temperature is reached, you want to drive it for about 10 to 15 more minutes. That's when your oil temperature gets up to range. So you don't want to go into your second cam once you're with cold oil, and I know that the ECU stops you from doing so as well, but it's not a good idea to just go into lift, which is this right here, lift. It's not a good idea to jump into lift as soon as you're able to. You want to give the engine enough time to warm up properly. So there you go. That's how you change the lift bolts on a 2000 to 2005 GTS with a 2ZZ-GE engine. So thank you guys for watching. Sorry for talking so much. There's a lot of information that I want to put into the videos, and they're quite longer than most other people's videos, but at the same time, if you are a person that wants to learn about the car and not just do it, then this is the right channel for you, because I want to explain how everything works and go into detail to someone that you know, has very limited amount of knowledge on working on the car. So I don't want to just tell you, oh, take this off, take this off. I want to tell you why. So I'm just doing my best to teach you guys how to work on the car and understand what you're doing, not just following directions like a zombie. So thank you guys for watching. And I know there's a ton of videos out there regarding these lift bolts and how to change them, but I just wanted to include it on my own channel as well. I'm doing it on my car, so this is a way for me to know when I've done it, and as well to document it on my car, and again to teach you guys a couple things that you might not have seen in other videos. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching. If you would like to, please subscribe. If not, that's okay. Hopefully that this helped you. Follow me on Instagram if you would like, and that's at KELEENT. So I'll have a link to that in the description below. But thank you guys for watching. Bye.